Hello and welcome to the Tech Bros podcast. We are here today to talk about artificial intelligence, which is a topic we've covered before.
Yes.
But a lot's happened since 2023, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, where do we begin? There's such a plethora of AI on the internet now, isn't there? So
It's a lot.
it's a lot. It's overwhelming, like, amount of options online in various forms. How are you guys feeling about it in the spaces that you work in? Like, what's your observations?
Well, I think from the last time we spoke about this, my opinion has not changed.
No.
I think I find it very scary how much it's progressed
In such a short
in such a
time,
short amount of time, and where people are now looking to using AI in everything.
Yep.
Because before we just had ChatGPT.
Yeah.
As
maybe some other small ones,
Yeah,
but
some
like
small
nothing
ones.
major. But now every platform. I think the last time we were talking about Google's one was just about coming out. Yeah. It was just being released, or was it beta? And now obviously that's, you get the AI suggestion or summary under every Google search that you do. But it's not just that. You've got Microsoft Copilot. You've got all of these.
Is it Grok on X?
Grok on X, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I'd say, arguably a bit handy if you're looking for certain information on Twitter, because it has access to everything on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, or X rather, I can't call it Twitter anymore.
The application formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which scarily obviously means that, anyone could hunt down any piece of information
That's
for you
it.
if it's available to a model. So, I mean, this is something that is worrying a lot of people, especially in the emergence of AI generated images and video. Can you really believe what's on social media anymore when people are saying things? AI voice cloning, there's people in the audio industry, voiceover industry, who are really concerned about their voices being cloned.
Yeah.
Celebrities, like there was one video, I'm not a big fan of her music at all, but Billie Eilish made a post about people criticizing her dress when she was at the Met Gala, which she wasn't even at. She was in a completely different country when it happened. Wow. Apparently people were really like taking the piss out of her dress or whatever.
Wow.
And she wasn't even there. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a celebrity, your entire image is basically up for grabs for anyone who's trying to easily access an AI model as well.
Yeah.
And I know this is a topic we can talk about forever, but like, it's scary.
And they're getting cheaper as well. I mean, there was DeepSeek, the Chinese company that basically was able to be faster, more scalable than ChatGPT, and a lot cheaper to
open
develop.
Source to a degree. I think there was another
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah. That you could install on your own computer and run it from your computer. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very worried for the future of young people going and accessing the internet, because information now more than ever, like, information has been traveling massively since the dawn of the internet, and especially in the last 10 years, it's been in the wake of like coronavirus and presidential elections. Everyone's gonna have access to information more than ever, and it's harder for organizations and companies to hide their dirty laundry. But with this, misleading, creating division, and it's terrifying, because at what point is an AI video going to be the subject or defining matter that could potentially start war? And the world is already bordering dangerous levels of war.
Already. And I think, to be honest as well, it's made people more lazy.
Oh yeah.
It's made people more lazy, because I remember when people used to use like Google just to do like sums.
Yeah.
And you could, and now if you use like ChatGPT,
you could do more complex things.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's a genius now.
Yeah.
Until ChatGPT servers go down.
Yeah, that's it. Or you say good morning. because apparently that causes a problem for it. It costs a lot of money when you say good morning to it.
Oh yeah, because it costs like an entire country's worth of electricity to run a server.
Yeah, so I'm just like.
So I need to say please and thank you. Does that count as well? Saying that you should.
You know, I would not be surprised if that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's becoming very scary times, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of regulation with.
Well, they're trying, but it's hard to.
It's
You can't keep up with it.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
How do you regulate that? It's you can regulate big companies like OpenAI, I guess.
Yeah,
because they're massive, and you can have Microsoft and Google, and there's a level of ethics involved in there. I think not that I wholeheartedly trust these companies with my data, but they have it. You are the product if you're giving away free stuff. But it just, I mean, everything is AI. Everything. Meta's got AI all over their platforms. X has got AI all over their platforms, and it's not even real AI.
I mean,
it's not even real AI.
I mean, I think what sort of happened is that we essentially started with the vision of we can automate and simplify a lot of menial tasks and sort of human processes and things that we do. And the problem is you can't really stop that, because then maybe there are like menial things that we can simplify and get AI to do. But then, it doesn't sort of stop there. It kind of keeps going.
Move the goalpost.
So maybe in the past, people have thought, for example, that software developers and programmers were safe in terms of their jobs. But actually, theirs isn't even there. Like, that's quite a sophisticated profession. And, well, at least maybe it was thought to be, quite safe from...
It has its place in a developer's tool set. I would never use it outrightly to replace my job, but... for the sake of spending an hour looking for a bug where AI could probably pick it up in like a few seconds, potentially, or at least point in the right direction, it will notice things quicker than I guess I would. I'm not perfect. I'm human. So, it has its use cases for training yourself on things that you're not familiar with. It's really good. But when you try and get it to do more complex tasks, it's drivel. It's not always something that's robust. You could probably write something a lot better, a lot more robust yourself. So I feel it has its place, and anything
the question is, how long will it stay like that?
Well, the more you feed it crap, the more it spits out crap, right? So that eventually is probably going to be an issue, I think. But I mean, ChatGPT's been going on probably the longest at this point. I still feel it does some things better than others. Like I said, it's a tool. It's not a replacement. And the fact that jobs are even like prompt engineer is a job title now for people is insane. Like,
I do. It's funny that well, maybe not funny, but I think the idea amusing, sure, that if a lot of jobs are being replaced, and then there's been this belief within those who are really big supporters of AI in that. AI is going to free up a lot of like work that we shouldn't be doing and create a lot of new jobs. And they've really focused on the first bit, but not so much the second bit. And the new job that's been created is prompt engineer.
Yeah.
And that's really about it.
And where it's trying to free up time, like companies are still demanding just as much from their employees. Eventually they demand more. If I can do something in half the time because AI's helped me out, now the expectation has been set. So now I need to maintain that expectation, which is why I try and avoid using it as much as possible, because I'm the value, not the AI. The value is me as a human person who's able to think creative and be creative, and then it's moving into other spaces, which is creative spaces. There's lots of concerns over how it trains off of images that it finds on the internet, which at what point does that AI generated image become plagiarism? Lots of artists who spend a lot of time honing their craft feel, rightfully, what's the word? Scams. Yeah, sorry, I'm throwing blanks. Not abused, vulnerable, exposed.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit used. You know, and I'm not an artist. I know loads of people who are, and I think a lot of them have these concerns about their art being online, and they feel scared that now, all it takes is an AI to scam their images. And something actually, Fiverr, which is a popular freelancers platform, they released an AI, and I kid you not, they marketed it like it was the best idea ever. Like, we've got something revolutionary. It wasn't. It was anything. It was the worst thing you could ever say to a platform with people who make money being creative.
Yeah.
I know it's not just artists on Fiverr. There's all sorts of people, but one of the features is that you can train the Fiverr AI model with your art, and then a customer potentially could come along, pay a little less, and the AI will generate art that they've requested off their brief in your style.
Yeah.
How is that something you sell to someone as a positive, especially when the art industry is already suspicious of, like, okay, sure, you might consent to it, but at what point? Like, that's crazy.
I think when we talk about things of where the human is doing stuff in the loop, and I think within the creative industry, like, say any piece of art is made up of two things. It's made up of like the process that creates the art, and then there's the art itself, the end product of it. And the AI community, people who really support it, focus on the end product and almost don't really see, they either don't care about the process or see it as something that's regrettable.
The process is 3.2 seconds in some cases.
Yeah. So, like, if you hear stories of like an animator and you look like a time lapse of them drawing a single frame, and you look at how long it takes them to do that. Some people will look at that and admire the process itself. Not just the end product, but that whole process. Whereas people who care about AI is more about the end product of, oh, well, what's the point of getting them to sit there for days working on this one frame of this animation when I could just, generate that in...
I mean, I've seen use cases, and I think this is probably more applicable to small teams or individuals. Like I've mentioned to you guys outside of this is not a plug, but I'm working on, creating an animated show.
You should plug it.
Well, Egerton can plug it. Oh, that's fine. We'll do an interview at some point in the future. But my problem is animation is expensive. And I've seen quotes in the region of 75,000 just for one episode, and that's US dollars. I can't afford that right now, so I do need investors to be able to invest in my show in order to be able to produce it. So I can do so much with the money that I earn. I'm not made of it, so I'm limited in my resources. But I was looking at videos online of animators and, what tools they use. And I found one to be interesting. And this is where I'm kind of like, this is a tool. And if you're doing a personal project or whatever, and there's time, and it depends what you're using it for. One of the models that he used was a replacement for in-betweening. So in-betweening is a process between an animation. So like a movement from A to B is one big movement. Say your arm completely up in the air to down. A, B. And drawing all of those cells between is called an in-between. So they're the in-betweens. And in the animation process, you'll hire a person who does the keyframes. Usually like a main artist of the whatever, an animator. And then you've got your in-betweeners, so you'll probably hire a team of maybe 3 people to do all the in-betweens because that's time consuming. There are AR models that can do this quite effectively. You give them 3 images, they'll do the in-between for that flow motion. It makes mistakes, but nothing an artist couldn't clean up in Photoshop afterwards or whatever, just to make it the way they want it. And that again, going back to the analogy I used with the code, that's a tool you use to help your process, but it's not replacement.
It's not impeding on the creative process.
No, but the creative process is still there. And I think in those cases, that's okay, because it's not learning. It's looking at your image and going, well, I know how movement works, so I'm going to give you an A to B and all of the bits in between A to B. So that makes sense to me. I'm not mad at that. And this was an artist, a creative. He put his own work up and he was using it. And I thought it was really, really clever. But this then doesn't create a job for people
No,
who
it
are
doesn't.
in between artists. So then there's that is this ethical to people who work as in between animators on TV shows? It's already an industry that's struggling. It was just an interesting thing for me, because I'm just diving into this space myself. I'm not an animator. I won't ever be an animator, so I will hire animators. But like this is an interesting space to say the least.
Like, I think given, like, obviously an animation is a very time-consuming activity, and people, when they work in that field, they know that going into it. They know that how much time and effort and care that it requires to do it. And I suppose that, maybe for them, they just see it as part of the job. Yeah, they might sort of say, kind of, people might say, oh, it's fine, we're freeing up some of that menial work that you do and doing sort of in-betweening. But maybe some people would be like, well, that's my job. That's what I wanted to do, right? So it's almost like, who's making that call of like deciding what's menial?
Well,
what
can be like, if you're a small single person, you're trying to create a little project to put together a pilot, that might be appropriate.
Yeah.
But for a big corporation, I think it'd be kind of sleazy to try and cut those corners, to try and, save on costs when things, when pumping all that money and basically the big wigs are getting all the money. This is like an issue because you're not putting it to the people who are putting the hard work in. You're cutting those people out, and I think that's wrong. But I think there's no harm in using it if you're an individual trying to put together a little project that might be a concept work that might get you a job or get you get your show greenlit for something and actually get real funding to do it for.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, just going back to like social media, I don't use any of the social media AI tools. I never will. It's already bad enough at least. I doom scroll and spend probably too much time on social media at the moment myself. So yeah, that's something I'm wanting it to learn.
Yeah. And with the social media now, and I know that definitely Meta has introduced what we call AI labels. So if you've created a picture using AI, you can actually set have a label to say that this was generated using AI.
How many people are going to use that though?
That's very true.
Like,
do you think everyone should use that?
Yeah,
I think that Meta is powerful enough to be able to detect AI. I think, anyway. Listen, they're able to identify people in pictures. That they've been using this similar sort of technology long before ChatGPT came along. When it came to something as simple as alternative texts, which not everyone takes advantage of. But if you're using a screen reader as a person who's blind, you'll come by alternative text on images all the time. And they've used something very similar, where if you looked at an image that someone posted on Facebook, if you looked at the alternative text, there's a description of what's in that image. That was never written by the poster. No one does that. I don't like doing it myself, and I'm a deaf. But like, the alternative text is generated by computer. It's able to look at the image and go, a picture of two ladies and a dog, and describe that image.
Yeah.
So they've been using it for ages. So they have the agency to take content and say this might be false. And Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, was using this feature. This might not be accurate when coronavirus is out. It was detecting possible false information being spread on social media. I think Facebook did it as well.
Yeah.
But they have the agency to do this.
I'd love to know how accurate those kind of self verification judgments are. Like, how good is AI? It's like, say, ChatGPT, if you feed in a sentence or an essay, how good is it being able to tell that it was...
What if you're really good at writing? How can it differentiate? Like, where's this? This is, how is it identifying? Because what if you are a good writer and it detects that you've not, like, and you submit an essay to university and use those plagiarizing softwares that now use AI to detect AI, because obviously people are going to use AI to cheat.
Yeah.
But what if you actually are a really good dissertation writer and it thinks you...
Well, people can be robotic, right?
Yeah.
That too. So
that's what I mean. I think, so how do you detect that, differentiate it? Because then someone could potentially be said, well, you cheated, you used AI, when they go, no, I haven't. And that has happened. I think at the beginning when they started using that in university, some people were being told that they were using AI generated content and they weren't.
Yeah.
So, and possibly lost degrees or being kicked out of university because of it. Like there's a huge risk to this because how accurate, as you say, are those technologies at detecting it?
You know, this makes me laugh because it reminds me of my uni days. Turn It In.
Turn It In, yeah.
Yeah, none of them. Yeah, and I'm thinking now how Turn It In has probably improved to actually detect AI, because I remember when you type in something in Turn It In and it knows you've got it from a website, it will blatantly say you have plagiarized. So I'm just thinking now, probably it's got.
Well, here's an interesting question. If you take something from ChatGPT and use in your essay, is that plagiarism?
Depends where ChatGPT generated the information from.
Right.
That is very true.
Thing, right?
That's very true.
And depends what, I guess, what you've been measured on. If you're an English major and you're, doing something in literature, you're writing something and you get ChatGPT to write it for you, you've got near impeccable English, according to ChatGPT. But then how is that asking ChatGPT to improve your punctuation and make sure that you're using, how is that any different than asking spell check on Microsoft Word?
I mean, yeah. Oh no,
You know what I mean? Like,
no, but yeah. So spell checks is one thing, but if you're taking whole bits of text from ChatGPT,
Yeah.
I suppose if it's generated it for you and you've not written any of it and you've just given it prompts, sure. Yeah. But say you write an essay and you're like, okay, I want to make sure this is spelled perfectly, punctuation is used properly.
Yeah.
And you put it into ChatGPT and say, make sure all my spelling is perfect.
Yeah.
Is that wrong? And will things like Turn It In or the AI equivalent detecting thing, is that going to say, well, this is AI generated? Well, it is and it isn't, AI generated because I've written it, but AI just made it better, right? So where's that line being drawn?
Well, to be honest,
how would they view that? Like, is it wrong? But again, I guess maybe if it was an English student, you should be good at English and should know your
that's very
punctuation.
true.
But what if you're like, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too deep about it.
Yeah, it depends on what you're being assessed on. So if you're being assessed on your ability to write amazingly, then you shouldn't be using it for that.
No,
if you're just doing your own little thing, then sure, like you're not being marked on it or something like that. When it comes to education, being marked in it in a school system,
I think within education space, you should 100% use it. But again, I'd say what's the difference between getting your punctuation improved by generative AI with your written text compared to using Microsoft Word spell checker?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There's a little line that's very similar there, just one's better at it than the other, I guess. Maybe. But
yeah. And then it might say, oh, while you're at it, you could, shorten this sentence. And then it's sort of...
I didn't ask you for that.
And then you go down a rabbit hole. But you're not just going to rewrite your whole introduction,
And the thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, because I finished uni many years ago.
We're old now.
Yeah. Harvard referencing, is that still in circulation?
I did have...
Oh, yeah, you've recently finished your Dr. Raj.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
PhD.
I mean, I tend to use APA, but for another paper, I did have to use Vancouver reference.
See, and I don't even know what APA or Vancouver referencing is.
This is way beyond my...
What's
What's a Vancouver reference?
So APA is when basically whenever you cite a paper, it gets put in that place in the reference list. So you go like the first one is number 1, the second one is number 2.
Sure.
Vancouver, you have to actually no, sorry, it's the other way around. Vancouver is that. The first one is the first references.
Yeah.
APA is alphabetical order in your reference list.
Jeez.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Vancouver's more of a pain.
Wow.
Let's put it that way.
Well, the one that we were using back in the day, you'd like cite the source next to the text you used. Was that the one, or was that making it?
We used to put it. We used to put it at the end.
Like a bibliography.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, at the end. Because I'm just thinking, like, if you had to
see, it's those mediocre tasks that I would 100% support GPT doing for me. I've got the sources, just make it look pretty.
But the thing is, what happens if you didn't have the source? I use ChatGPT to kind of make something up, then how are you going to do your Harvard
But the thing is it's a predictive language model. So it is going to look at each word and it's going to decide what's the most likely next word in that sequence. And it does that, for a whole sentence. And so that's why when especially for academic writing, it's going to make up references. It doesn't have an idea of what papers exist. It just thinks, well, these words kind of go together. And so it'll make up papers that don't exist.
Most newer models now have access to information because they are actively crawling. Like, for example, Google. Google has crawlers, and now its AI has access to the information those crawlers pick up because it uses it for SEO. So it's already crawling and keywording and for information, and that's why, as in front end development, having correctly formatted websites is imperative. Using correct headers, using correct paragraphing, and markup in general is immensely important for things like SEO, because you want to sell something, you need it to be as machine friendly as possible to ensure that the machine gets your stuff in front of the consumer that will buy your product or service. So I can see things like Google maybe being more instrumental. I think I find the AI summary to be incorrect sometimes, so it's not necessarily been fed good information.
No,
I think it probably uses the first page maybe, and if there's anything crap in that first page,
it's gonna take it.
You know what I mean? So and again, it's also dependent on what you look for as well. But I feel like we're in a space where this is going to get ever more brilliant, or it's going to become the downfall of business. And I'm hoping, this is just me, I'm hoping that the oversaturation of the market, because everyone who now has access to Python is writing AI models, and you've got so many things like, we can design websites using AI models, using Figma and blah blah blah, or we can solve this and we could do this, and it's all AI this and AI that, and it's exhausting. I'm exhausted because I'm sick of those two letters. I really am. And even being asked at work, we need AI. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. We do not need to offer. Ironically, we've kind of used something, but it's to offer end users, but it's not something that I'm massively in favor for.
I do also wonder about those. You get these occasional AI trends on social media, like say when everyone was drawing themselves in Studio Ghibli style, that sort of thing.
And
which has hurt Studio Ghibli and is massively. And by doing,
doesn't even hold up in terms of it's using open source materials, like say on Mine.
It's not.
These are commercial movies that were made.
It's learning a style that is quintessentially associated with that business, that art style. So and I think that's where it's ethically wrong. And for me, it just feels like you're robbing an experience. An honest experience.
Well, it's again the idea of the process versus the end product of these things. So some people only care about if you give me something in the Studio Ghibli style, I'll watch it, and I don't really care how it was made. Whilst some people, I think a lot of people
care about that.
Will care about that, and I think so long as those people still exist, then that's not going to go away.
I agree. I'm definitely one of those people. I appreciate art in its rawest form because I've worked with so many artists over the years. And it is scarily in a market that is being trampled on because of AI, because people want a shortcut. I mean, the one that's really wound me up, and no one I've seen has brought this up, so this is a first, is first here. We've said it first. It's Etsy. Etsy is an individual business. You could create an individual business. Okay, sure, some people make some terrible things, but you can get a lot of custom stuff on there. People making amazing artwork, jewelry and stuff like that. Now, I, in my ventures, really want to have a little action figure of my little characters I've made for my animation. And I typed it in just by the chance. I wonder if there's anyone out there who could make a model for me. I pay a few £100 for, sure. And what was I welcomed with when I did that search for custom action figures? People selling the AI generated action figure trend that happened a few months ago.
Oh, that thing. Yes. Yes. I remember.
And it was on every page in a multitude. So real people making real action figures
Yeah.
have just been swallowed away
Yeah.
by people who are trying to make a bit of money, for people who might not know how to access things like ChatGPT to get it to generate these images. And they're charging £10-20 for it.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's also like a weird circular thing of like real action figures that then is being emulated by something like an AI. And then the humans are then emulating that.
Yeah.
That's like weird.
But
yeah.
you're literally buying an
Yeah.
image of an action figure. You're not buying an action figure.
Oh, well, then who cares? That's so weird. Yeah.
Do you know, like, I was so angry because I was thinking, like, it takes seconds for this to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the reviews. Turnaround was amazing. And I'm like, people bought this?
People bought it. Wow.
Well, supposedly, allegedly.
Well, yeah, it depends if the reviews are real bad.
Good point.
But I think you can't leave a review unless you bought something on Etsy. So it could very well be that those are genuine reviews. Some maybe old dear who thought they'd want to buy an action figure of their husband for a card or whatever. Like, I can see use cases like that, but if it's there and you can access it yourself, someone should not be charging you for it. That's diabolical.
No.
And not only that, there are people who might be making custom action figures for real action figures, and they're not getting their traffic because they've been inundated with the search terms being hijacked essentially by generated images.
Yeah. I think probably if I was sort of thinking long term, I think what will happen is that we'll have sort of a market for AI art and a market for human generated created art. That is separate. And I think that unfortunately that market is going to be smaller than obviously it was before. But I think that will still exist, and I think those two will be very separate.
Well, I hope so. I'd like to weed out the rubbish, to be honest with you, because I feel a lot of that stuff is rubbish. I feel quite strongly about it, even though ironically I do still use some. But as a tool, it's a tool, and it should only ever be a tool.
But also, I think in the context of art, I think that in the same way that artists themselves have a style, like a signature, I feel like AI art has a style.
Oh yeah,
I don't think that people, and obviously not everyone's going to like it, right? They're going to want some kind of human style on it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a human element.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, still not getting things like fingers right, so, you know, we're not out of the woodworks yet.
Yeah.
Once they figure out the fingers, we're screwed. That's it.
Yeah, I think when they start moving AI in the direction of like things like video games and stuff and making hyper-realism, like they already do that with videos, like, and they're getting really good.
Yeah.
But things like the video game market, I think, go back to a previous episode that we were talking in, you know, that market could be at risk to some degree. And then, you know, how does that affect things like prices, and how does that affect things like, you know, the consumer? So, you know, and if you haven't checked that other episode, please do. It's a really good episode about games.
Yeah, I feel like Microsoft was touting this idea of having kind of AI driven dialogue and NPCs in games.
It was very much met with disdain from the gamers.
So, you know, you interact with some character and sort of in real time they'll simulate some kind of conversation.
But the issue is obviously you're putting voice actors out of business.
Yes.
How
another
that was again like, ethics, right?
Yeah.
Ethics.
This has been a great topic.
We're screwed.
Thank you very much for listening. This has kind of sort of been a topic that I really want to talk about. I'm driven by me on this one, but thanks for getting involved in this one, guys. If you have concerns about AI, let us know what your concerns are, your experiences are with AI generated stuff, and comment on the YouTube video when it goes up. And
unless you're a bot.
Unless you're a bot, then you
No, we don't want to know.
Go away.
delete System 32.
That'll teach him.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.